You're smarter than they are. You make bigger incomes. You've got everything going. And then you hear, the elite has just said. The elite. They're more elite than me. I have better everything than they have, including this. And I became president and they didn't, meaning you became president. And it's driving them crazy.
Trump ended the week with a third rally, this time for Ohio congressional candidate Troy Balderson. Trump says the Ohio Republican will help his agenda and keep the GOP in the majority.
They're talking about this blue wave. I don't think so. I don't think so. If the Democrats get in, they're going to raise your taxes. You're going to have crime all over the place. You're going to have people pouring across the border. So why would that be a blue wave? I think it could be a red wave. I tell you what, really, I think it should be a red wave.
The Ohio race is neck and neck. Balderson, who's the Trump-backed candidate, is up by just 1 point with 11% of voters undecided before Tuesday's special election. Now, in 2016, Trump won this district by nearly 12 points. And it's not just in Ohio where Trump wants to be a midterms motivator. Trump spent the week crisscrossing the country, rallying the GOP base in Florida and in Pennsylvania, touting his successes and his favorite issues.
Since the election, we have added 3.7 million new jobs. We passed the biggest tax cuts and reform in American history, biggest cuts in history. We're going to start to get very nasty over the wall. We're either getting it or we're closing down government. We need border security. We need border security.
With us to share their reporting and their insights, we've got Jonathan Martin of the New York Times, Catherine Lucy of the Associated Press, the Washington Post's Karin Demerjen, and CNN's Jeff Zeleny. Welcome. Thanks for being here this Sunday morning. Jeff, I'm going to start with you. Trump clearly loves being out on the campaign trail, right? It's like a flashback to 2016. He's all over the country. Is he the GOP's best messenger at this point?
Well, he's the one that they have, and at least to the base, he absolutely is, particularly when he is in a state that he won. I was with him in Pennsylvania on Thursday night. He starts the first, I would say, 15 or so minutes at least of the rally, reprising minute by minute, in some cases, election night 2016. Right. Loves to talk about that. You know, there's not as much messaging as some Republican leaders would like him to talk about. Rarely talks about a tax cut, but talks a lot about immigration and other matters. So for the people in the room, he is the best messenger. But those voters, of course, are already with him. The question is, what else does he bring when he comes to town? A lot of baggage. And, you know, we talk a lot about this, suburban women voters, other suburban voters. Does he hurt more than he helps? We'll see. I mean, during a midterm election campaign, you know, most people are not as focused on it as a presidential campaign. Right. So he definitely draws attention to the race here, and he fires up the base more than anyone can, but he also is probably firing up the other side, firing up Democrats as well. So we know now, after Labor Day, he says he wants to campaign at least 6 days a week or so. The question is, are there enough Republicans who want him to come campaign? I think the answer is yes, probably, but he's going to go to a lot of red states, a lot of Trump states from 16, but the issue for him, so many important House races that will determine control of the House are not in those places at all. So he's helpful in the room, outside the room. We'll see. One
of the things he's certainly going to be campaigning again and again, and was there this week, Florida, where Ron DeSantis is running for governor there. And here's what he had to say about the power of Donald Trump.
Well, obviously, you know, he's the 800-pound gorilla in Republican politics, and I think a lot of our voters at the grassroots level are frustrated when they see some Republicans not trying to support him, and so that's something that they look for. I think Trump's support kind of separates the wheat from the chaff, and I think it's been a big boost for me.
Catherine, the 800-pound gorilla can be a force for good and a force for bad.
Yeah, I mean, there is a reality that you can't really run away from the leader of your party, and he's the party leader. And what Trump's people really feel, and I think the president feels, is that this is a referendum on his presidency. So that these midterms are a warm-up for 20, and his presidency and his policies are on the agenda. And you're seeing in races across the country also, Democrats are also making it about Trump. So it is a nationalized race. Even if there are Republicans in blue states who would rather, keep the focus elsewhere. So I think you're going to see him continue to be out there aggressively, and he's going to make it about the issues he wants to make it about. He's going to keep talking about the wall. He's going to keep talking about immigration. We're going to hear less from him on tax cuts and Republican policies that some might prefer to be focused.
Karin, you want to jump in?
It just makes a difference, though, depending on what the brand of the individual Republican running is, especially if they're an incumbent. Like DeSantis has actually been fairly proactive about aligning himself with Trump, especially when it comes to things related to the Russia probe and DOJ issues.
To put it mildly.
Right. And so, of course, he's going to see that as...
Because I'm Fox every night talking about it.
So, of course, he's going to be somebody who thinks that this is a great, great boost. There's a lot of Republicans out there that are really squeamish about things the president says that don't line up with what they're doing and saying and what they're going to be able to be reelected.
Yeah.
And J. Mark, we
really does make a difference.
Florida's a good experiment for this. I was in Florida last week covering the governor's race, and this is a great experiment. Look, I think in the general election, Trump is more of a negative than he is a positive, because I think he motivates Democrats in a way that they have not been motivated since Barack Obama came onto the national scene in 2008. But in the primary, he can deliver nominations now.
As we've seen.
And you mentioned Ron DeSantis aligning himself with the president. He's on Fox almost every night defending Trump on the Mueller investigation. And what has that done for him? It got Trump's attention, and Trump then endorsed him for governor and essentially ended the race.
Right.
And by the way, Ron DeSantis has no real grounding in Florida state politics at all. He's running against somebody, Adam Putnam, who is as well versed in Florida politics as any candidate there in decades. None of that matters in the GOP primary right now. So in the primary context, Trump's a huge asset, and if you get on Fox and you carry his water, then that's going to pay off for you in a nomination. The real test in a purple state like Florida is, what does that mean in the general election?
Right.
If you tie yourself to Trump that much, like he has, what do you do
for that general
in the fall when voters who aren't that psyched about Trump are looking at you, and your entire brand is based on going on Sean Hannity and talking about Uranium One?
Right, and we can see, I'm going to play two ads here, the way Republicans are sort of talking about Trump and using some of his talking points, and also Democrats.
I'm Troy Balderson. I'll end sanctuary cities to stop illegals from taking our jobs, fight alongside Trump to implement his agenda, and use conservative grit to build the darn wall.
I am so different from this guy. My parents started with nothing, and Mom became Ford's first female engineer. Our views on women, very different. I'm pro-equal pay and pro-choice. I'm Sunil Gupta, and if you want to send a message to Donald Trump, send me to Congress.
Wow.
Sunil Gupta there running in Michigan. I should say that he is Sanjay Gupta's brother, who Sanjay Gupta, of course, works for CNN. And that's the way we see Democrats using Donald Trump as a foil for their own campaigns.
No doubt. And as Jonathan was saying, I mean, it's almost all the primaries are over, so we're almost at that hurdle, but not completely. But in the primary campaign after Labor Day, it is going to be both sides using Donald Trump. And for Democrats, this resistance movement, he is going to be a powerful force. But the other issue for Democrats is, though, for all the oxygen that this presidency consumes, one thing we don't often discuss as much as what's happening on the Democratic side in terms of their own identity crisis. So who else are some of these Democrats going to have in? Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders? Yes, probably at this point. But there are plenty of issues on the Democratic side, which are just lingering for 2020. But for now, at least, one thing that also we have our eye on, how many Democrats running for House candidates are going to be talking about impeachment, other things?
Yeah, that's
the party leaders want them to not mention it at all. Tom Steyer, of course, spending millions and millions talking about it, but that is hanging over the this entire conversation: impeachment and investigations. And it's one of the reasons that the president is worried about the midterm elections. Because, boy, his life changes immensely if Democrats control the House.
Quickly, Jonathan.
If you look at the Schumer and Pelosi talking points and messaging, you would think it's the year 2006 or 2008. It's like, we're fighting to lower health care costs for everyday Americans. It's like the pre-Trump era material. It's like your base is on fire, and they're ready to impeach the guy yesterday. But they know that that is a dangerous tack to take right now. But it is fascinating seeing some of their talking points that apply to a world that just isn't there right now.
One of the things that emerges this week, a fascinating story of the fight between LeBron James and Donald Trump. The most fascinating thing being Melania Trump inserting herself into this in a way that she didn't necessarily have to. Her spokeswoman said, it looks like LeBron James is working to do good things on behalf of our next generation. And just as she always has, the First Lady encourages everyone to have an open dialogue about issues facing children today. The most fascinating part of this to me was she would be open to visiting the